Clara's parents, Mrs. Dorothy and Mr. Mike, stepped out of their car, now stranded on the lonely, distant road leading to Royal College, situated on the outskirts of the city. With their car engine dead and a massive log blocking their path, they found themselves unable to move forward. This left them with no choice than to abandon the vehicle. Desperation set in as they decided to trek the long distance, their hearts pounding with fear. They needed to reach the police station. They needed to find Clara. Dorothy silently prayed, hoping her child was safe and that this nightmare would soon end. We should have listened to Clara, she thought, as they began the seemingly endless journey. Back at the school, Clara ran frantically through the hallway, panting heavily. She bumped into Nun Shirley and, in a breathless rush, began recounting the harrowing events of the previous night. Clara began to narrate to her all that happened. She told the nun of the spirit of Elder Rufus, who tried to kill her the previous night. She recounted how she made use of a special rosary she had coincidentally found on the corridor of their dormitory on the day she was returning back to her room after having a conversation with Danny and Brown, who advised her to get a school rosary and keep beside her whenever she went to sleep, because of the ghost of Nun Sarah haunting her back then. It was the same rosary she made use of the previous night, and shockingly, when she summoned the courage to lift up the rosary, the ghost of Elder Rufus suddenly could not harm her. She screamed and vanished. Clara continued, "As I ran toward the door of my room, trying to get out and call for help, I saw the spirit of Elder Rufus enter into the body of Nun Simi. She was standing there frozen in the corridor, her eyes rolled back. It was as though her spirit was not there." "Nun Simi," Clara said, panting. "I saw her. She was burying the bodies. She has been the one killing all the missing students from our school. She may be working with Elder Rufus's ghost." Clara's voice trembled as she pleaded with the nun. "We have to get out of here," she insisted, "before they kill us all. We need to call the police. I have to speak to my parents." Nun Shirley listened, but disbelief clouded her face. "Calm down," she urged. "It's just a bad nightmare, nothing more." But Clara was adamant, insisting that the school was haunted. She begged Shirley to call the police and challenged her to try making contact with the outside world. Reluctantly, the nun granted Clara permission to make the call. But as Shirley returned to her office and tried dialing out, she was stunned. None of the numbers worked. Back in the hallway, Clara frantically tried calling her parents, but all her attempts failed. It was as if something was blocking their calls, cutting them off completely from the outside world. Hours later, after an exhausting trek, Clara's parents finally reached the police station. Fear and anxiety were etched on their faces as they recounted the strange and terrifying events to the officers. They had lost their way to their daughter's school, and they needed to save her. The officers, alarmed by the story, followed them back to the blocked road. There, they too were shocked to find that the path forward had vanished, leaving only the lonely route behind them. Whatever was happening was beyond their control. Something much bigger was at play. With nothing more they could do, Dorothy and Tolu collapsed in despair, cursing themselves for not heeding Clara's warnings months ago. They prayed for one more chance, pleading with God to reunite them with their daughter, vowing never to dismiss her fears again. Back at the school, Nun Shirley shared her unnerving phone experience with the other nuns, along with Clara's accusations against Nun Simi, the new head teacher. But they laughed it off, attributing Clara's story to the symptoms documented in her medical file. They dismissed her warnings and went about their day as if nothing had happened. But Clara knew time was running out. She had to act fast, or it would be over for them all. She had a plan. Later that day, in her office, Nun Simi sat at her desk, her usual bubbly demeanor masking the darkness within. Her smile quickly faded into a deep, sinister frown as Elder Rufus spoke through her. "No one will ever find this school again until I am done with all of them," she thought. "They must pay for taking my precious school away." She was puzzled by the rosary Clara had wielded. "Clara, what's that thing she was holding? What type of a rosary was that restricted her powers?" Neither Elder Rufus nor Clara knew that particular rosary once belonged to Nun Sarah, the innocent nun who was killed. The spirit of the nun had positioned the rosary on the floor for Clara to find, so she could use it to reveal herself to her and seek her help. It was the one thing Nun Sarah's spirit was still attached to, and Clara had to find it and be in possession of it. This was the reason that particular rosary could chase away the ghost of Elder Rufus. All Elder Rufus knew was that she needed to get rid of the rosary and get rid of Clara first. Then one by one she would snuff them all out for betraying her. This was Elder Rufus's thought as she sat in her office. She had a plan to end it all, once and for all. That night, as usual, the students were gathered in the school auditorium for the monthly assembly. Nun Shirley and the other nuns watched closely, suspicious of Nun Simi as she addressed the students. Nun Simi was speaking happily and smiling, encouraging the students, and hailing the smooth sailing of the term. Being grateful for a peaceful tenure so far, her words were a bit shocking and contradictory, because it sounded as though she was totally unaware of all the missing students and ill things that had been going on in the school since she became the new head teacher. Clara sat among the students, her heart pounded with dread, knowing something terrible was about to happen. Clara knew she had to expose Nun Simi's true identity to everyone if she was going to be believed. As Nun Simi continued her cheerful speech, Clara began to lift the rosary, the only thing she knew could hold power over the ghost. The moment she did, the entire hall gasped in shock. The smiling, happy Nun Simi was suddenly revealed as an enraged ghost, her true form screaming and writhing angrily at them. The revelation was like a ripple of horror across the room. In that instant, the real spirit of Nun Simi returned to her body, and Elder Rufus's ghastly form became fully visible, standing menacingly at the podium. Nun Simi's body crumpled to the ground, unconscious, while Elder Rufus's spirit stood there, glaring at the crowd with a twisted smile. She knew they could see her now, and she smiled because she could sense their fear. She could perceive the fear in the room. That was exactly what she needed. Their fear fueled her strength. It was exactly what she needed to grow stronger. As the students began to scream and scramble out of their seats, the terror in the room surged, feeding her power. This was her moment. She had everyone, right where she wanted them. The nuns quickly began chanting prayers, clutching their rosaries, but it had no effect. Elder Rufus descended from the stage, her spectral form moving closer to the students, her malevolent intent clear. Just as she was about to begin strangling them one by one, Clara lifted her rosary again, and with a shriek, Elder Rufus vanished. Her spirit retreated from the hall, but not without leaving behind a trail of horror. She hovered over the school, her wails echoing through the field outside, spreading dread and despair. The nuns hurriedly ushered everyone out of the auditorium and into the large hall of the school, slamming the doors shut behind them. Nun Simi had regained consciousness, but she was pale and shaking, gasping for air as the other nuns tried to calm her, offering her water. Nun Shirley addressed the students, trying to reassure them. "You'll be safe," she said. "We won't let anything happen to you, so long as we work together, pray, and no one leaves this room." She promised them that no more lives would be lost, that help would come. Clara stood up, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. "We'll be all right," she told her fellow students. "The rosary has power over the ghost. As long as we have it, we'll be safe. Let's do as Nun Shirley says and pray. I know God will send help." The students, though terrified, clung to her words, their only hope in this nightmare. It was a horrific ordeal. The students huddled together in the large hall, trembling with fear, afraid not just of death but of being trapped in this place forever. Hearts raced as they clung to one another inside the hall, their only place of refuge against the evil swirling outside. By the next morning, the nuns began to distribute what little food they had left, just bread. There was no water, only bread, and it was all they had for the students. This meager rationing continued for 2 days as they prayed together, desperate for help to arrive. Each night, Elder Rufus's ghost could be heard swirling outside the school. Then, inevitably, she would appear at their windows, her presence sending waves of terror through the hall. She could not enter as long as Clara prayed with the rosary, but she wouldn't leave either. Clara spent sleepless nights on edge, praying and waiting for the ghost to show up at the window, lifting the rosary each time to make her vanish, though never for long. But as the days wore on, their food supply dwindled. Soon, the nuns were forced to ration the bread even more, feeding only the youngest of the students. Their fear grew as they realized how dire their situation was becoming. The senior students were hungry and dehydrated. It was the third day already, and desperation was setting in. A group of girls began murmuring amongst themselves. They needed food. They needed to see their parents. Sitting in the hall, waiting to die of hunger, was not an option. So, they devised a plan to escape and find their way back to the city to seek help. That fateful night, while everyone was asleep, they snuck out of the hall. They successfully made their way out of the school, heading straight into the woods, hoping to find a path back to the city. But as they crept through the forest, a chilling sound echoed through the trees. Laughter. A deadly female voice coming from somewhere in the dark. They froze in terror, unsure where the laughter was coming from. And then, to their horror, the spirit of Elder Rufus appeared from nowhere, moving with terrifying speed to and fro in the air. The girls didn't hesitate. They turned and ran, sprinting back to the school as fast as their legs could carry them. Bursting through the doors, they snuck back into the hall, slipping into their places as though nothing had happened. The next day, the fourth day in the hall, Clara noticed 3 girls staring awkwardly at her. She was startled. The more she looked, the more the one in the middle stared back, her eyes filled with disdain. Clara wondered why, but quickly returned to praying the rosary. Meanwhile, outside in the real world, Clara's parents made their way to a nearby church. The police couldn't help them. No one could. They knew it was now in God's hands if they ever hoped to see Clara again. As they entered the church, they were surprised to see a woman praying, crying bitterly at the altar. As they approached, they heard her pleading for her son at the Royal College, begging God to reveal the true road to the school. Dorothy and Tolu were shocked. As the church began to empty, they approached the woman and learned that she, too, was a parent of a student at the Royal College. She was Dayo's mother. She had endured many sleepless nights, worrying about her son. She tried calling the school countless times, but the calls never went through. Finally, she decided to come herself, but the road, it was blocked. She couldn't find the school anymore. She had been praying in the church for days without returning home. Hearing this, Dorothy and Mike knew they were truly up against something far beyond their understanding. That night, they didn't sleep. Mrs. Oriolua sat in exhaustion while Dorothy and Mike prayed their hearts out before the altar. Back in the hall, everyone had fallen asleep, including Clara, exhausted from days of fear and prayer. But one of the girls who had been staring angrily at Clara all day got up from her place. She was the leader of the 3 who had tried to escape and returned secretly after being chased by the ghost. Elder Rufus's spirit had taken control of one of them during that terrifying encounter. She had chosen the strongest-willed among the 3, planning to use her to finalize her evil. The girl, now under the spirit's control, walked straight to where Clara lay sleeping. She silently picked up the rosary, took a few steps away, and snapped it in 2, causing the beads to scatter across the floor. Immediately, the hall door swung open, and Elder Rufus's spirit entered in a rage. She went straight for Clara, the one who had tormented her with that rosary all this time. This time, Elder Rufus became invisible, so none of the nuns with their rosaries could stop her. Her spirit was consumed with rage and a desperate thirst for revenge. She began dragging Clara across the bare floor, pulling her hair, slamming her repeatedly against the ground. The hall erupted in screams of terror. Then Elder Rufus began to choke Clara, squeezing her throat tightly, determined to end her life. Meanwhile, back at the church, Dorothy and Mike were still praying, pleading for mercy over Clara and all the children at the school. As their prayers intensified, Elder Rufus felt it, a force far more powerful than hers, pulling her out of the hall and banishing her from the school. Dorothy and Mike had no idea what their prayers had accomplished that night. As soon as the spirit left, everyone in the hall began to run for their lives. Nunsimi was the first to flee, with the other nuns following closely behind. The students scrambled after them, with Clara leading the way. That night, they made their way through the woods, the same place where it had all begun. But this time, after hours of running, they finally emerged onto the main road. But they didn't stop. They ran until dawn began to break. Not looking back, They had witnessed horrors beyond imagination, things that defied the laws of nature. As Clara forged ahead, she spotted her parents on the road from a distance. "Mom! Dad!" she screamed. Dorothy and Mike, who had returned to their spot on the main road to wait for their child, turned around to see Clara and a group of students running toward them. It was a flood of tears and emotions as they were finally reunited with their daughter. "Mom, Dad, I was scared," Clara whispered. "It's all over now," they assured her. "Please forgive us, Clara. We're sorry. You'll tell us everything when we get home." But on the other side of the road, Mrs. Oriolua was frantically scanning the group of students running in her direction, her eyes desperate as she searched for her son, Dio. But he never showed up. She understood what it meant. Her tears fell uncontrollably as she realized her son had not been one of the lucky ones. Dio had not survived the evil that had taken hold of the prestigious Royal College. Clara's parents did everything they could to console Mrs. Oriolua before finally leaving with Clara in tears. Clara told Mrs. Oriolua of Dio's last words he had said to her. She told Mrs. Oriolua how much her son loved her and wanted to make her proud. Mrs. Oriolua wept bitterly, but nothing could change what had been done. The tape was submitted to the authorities and the Royal College was shut down. The nuns returned to being just nuns, no longer operating the school. Clara stood in front of the gate of her new school, another Jesuit college. She recalled the horrors of almost being killed, trapped in that hall, not knowing if she would live to see the next day or the future she had dreamed of achieving through her education. She feared what this new experience might hold, but even in her doubt, she took a bold step forward, a step of faith and bravery. She knew that whatever the future brought, she was stronger now, ready to face it and fight for herself and those she would encounter in this new chapter of her life, as the next page of her story had only just been flipped. The Royal College became an abandoned, forgotten property. Its luxury classrooms and dormitories lay empty. Not even the creeping animals dared to enter. Elder Rufus's spirit returned again. She was too attached to the school and refused to pass on to the other world. She resumed her duties in her office as though the school were still running. And if anyone ever dared to trespass or found themselves within the four corners of the school, it remains uncertain if they would live to tell the tale, like Clara did. The lesson to be learned from this story is, always listen to your children. Sometimes they know more than you do. Luxury doesn't always mean safety, and not everyone will be as fortunate as Clara. It may not be a ghost story. It could be something else troubling your child, something they're too scared to speak about. Pay attention. Pray always, and seek spiritual guidance, because life is indeed spiritual. Thank you for watching. If you stayed with me to finish this story, I say thank you. It was made for you. Please don't forget to share this video with others and spread the message. Leave a like and subscribe for more touching stories. Until we meet again, stay blessed, and I'll see you in our next story.